Yo, 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 what up? It's me, your boy, and I'm here today to talk to you about a magical creature, a magical lower hominid that performs a magical dance. And I'm of course referring to the mythical dancing monkey, AKA the entertainer guy. Now, what's this all about? Well, when you're out meeting people, there's often a fine line between actually enjoying yourself and having fun and actually behaving in a way that's trying to impress others that actually ends up being kind of off-putting. So where is that line? Where's that sort of gray area? When does having fun cross over into entertainer man, dancing monkey syndrome land? Let's explore. Okay, so here we are back in my lovely home where all of the magic happens, so to speak. Creepy. But anyway, the topic of today's video, this so-called dancing monkey syndrome or entertainer guy syndrome that seems to afflict so many guys who are learning game, it actually came up from an email that I got from a former client, a former boot camp student. And I really do have an open door policy when it comes to alumni, in the sense that not a real open door policy where you can enter my home at any time you wish, but a virtual open door policy where you can feel free to shoot me questions. Because you're bound to have questions after a program. They might be abstract questions about how you're feeling personally as you learn this stuff and integrate it into your life. Or they could be very specific questions about here's a specific situation, I'm not sure how I should respond to this, et cetera, et cetera. So your success is my success, as corny as that sounds. And I really want people to be able to get on the meme tree, so to speak, and take this information and go out and use it to enrich their own lives and bring joy to other people's lives as well. So it's very, very important to me. So I'm always very good about responding to alumni emails. And I even respond to random emails from random viewers and subscribers like yourself. If you're not a subscriber, actually take a moment, subscribe to this channel right now, like this video, et cetera, so you can get the real talk brought to you every week. But anyway, so this was an email that I got from, and by the way, if you are interested in sending me your own questions, you can shoot those over to jeff@realsocialdynamics.com, and there's a pretty good chance, if it's a good question, it'll end up being answered on this channel. So anyway, like I said, this was an email from a former client, and let me just read it out to you. Dear Jeff, this is something that I've noticed in my game recently. I've been consciously thrashing out my value system and becoming clearer and clearer about what I want in life. I've been working on cutting out any reaction seeking or button pushing stuff, which is harder than I thought it would be, but it's rewarding. I've been going out and focusing only on having fun and taking consistent action. I've been trying to be indifferent and doing the least amount possible to get to the next stage. Also not giving away my power. I'm realizing more and more that I am high value at my core. All good, right? Well, it seems I'm becoming pretty much unimpressed with most people I meet and more critical of their behaviors. Most of them, in fact 99% I've met recently, if I'm being honest, just fall short in a lot of areas. Hotness isn't enough. I'm rejecting more people based on unacceptable behavior, a good thing, but still there's this gap emerging between what I feel like inside, high core value, and my infield results. I'm closing less and just getting generally less far in the interactions. I have far less motivation to pass tests, to keep the vibe positive, to push through resistance, or sometimes even to open. Why should I? I'm money. They should be opening me. Now, at this point, if you're watching this, you might be, especially if you're an intermediate type guy, you might be thinking to yourself, I've been struggling with this exact same thing myself. And it's very, very, very common. It's something that I personally encountered as well, and that's why I chose to answer this. But again, let me just finish it out here. Funnily, my game was probably tightest about 2 months ago, when I was probably more dancing monkey syndrome than I'd like to admit, but I was enjoying it nevertheless, and I was actually getting pretty good results. I know in my heart that being unreactive and true to myself is really the right path. For me right now, though, it seems to be bringing out aspects of myself that aren't compatible with meeting people and aren't compatible with generating a good vibe. Anyway, it's just something I'm noticing creeping into my game. Not a huge deal, but I'd like to catch it while it's still small and knock it 6 months down the line and find out that I'm one of those angry, bitter dudes who thinks he's the best, but can't even open. Wow, so that's a lot to unpack there, but I think we all know one of those guys who thinks he's the best, but can't even open. Oftentimes it's a civilian friend, but it's even more disheartening when it becomes a guy who knows the game, because he really should know better. So to the writer of this email, I want to address you right now. I think what you might be experiencing here is, like I said, a very core dilemma that I've seen from all the inner game type guys in the community back in the day before we switched over to natural game, and then the guys had routines and then they became natural game guys. Basically what I saw back then is a guy where they would start off by being a dancing monkey, so to speak, for a long time, routines and stuff like that. And then at some point they'd finally snap and they'd just be like, screw this, I'm not running around like this clown anymore in the club. I know what I want. I'm not going to be doing that stuff anymore. And at this point, most often what would happen is the results would go way, way down. And I think that one of the reasons for this is that they simply didn't want to put themselves out there anymore, right? They decided to shut off that part of themselves. And this is also really bad because you'd see a lot of gurus, so-called gurus, stop getting results for this exact same reason. And then they'd end up becoming really bitter at the whole community and just dropping out of it. I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years, so I've seen it all. But personally, I remember when I started getting into that whole, unreactive standards mindset, there was an incident where I was actually out at the club with a buddy of mine who was one of the most dancing monkey guys you can imagine, actually, right? Super cool guy, very smart guy, but dancing monkey nonetheless. And this night, guess who left with someone while I was derping around trying to look cool and unreactive? The dancing monkey guy. So when this happened, this actually kind of blew my mind at the time, because the things that he was doing were totally against the direction that I've been going in, right? And at this point I realized, I guess, the next sort of principle about this whole thing, which is this: put your personality fully out there, right? Put your personality on the chopping block, so to speak. So my entertainer guy friend, what I realized is he wasn't really being reactive. He was just doing whatever he wanted to do and was just sort of putting himself out there and ultimately amusing himself. So he wasn't like a lot of these, so-called game guys who pump various lines, pump various bits or routines. Like, they drop the line and then they wait there on pause for their reaction, right? Like, did you like it? Like crossing their fingers that the person's going to respond favorably. So he was just simply hammering them with his nonsense, really not caring one way or another. Simply why? Because he liked it and he thought it was funny. And so that was a huge realization for me. And the realization that I got from this was that there's no problem with being a dancing monkey as long as it's coming from the right place. So think of it like this: having fun, even if it's being kind of clownish, is good. Trying to get their reaction is bad. So be your own dancing monkey, in other words. And really, this just kind of comes down to the whole principle of whatever you feel, they feel. Like the number one rule of the game is whatever you feel, they're going to feel. So if you're in state, it works. Now, most guys who you see out who are game guys who are kind of dancing monkey-ish, those guys are reactive. And that's why we say that. We say, don't act like that. Don't be the dancing monkey, because we tend to associate it with being one of those guys who's reactive. Like, do you like it? Do you like it? But the thing is, if you're not reactive, then you're not reactive, right? Plain and simple. It doesn't matter how you act. The subtle things in your eyes, your voice, the sub-communications are going to come through that you're actually unreactive, right? The self is always shining through. And beyond that, remember, neediness is perhaps the most unattractive characteristic of all. So with my outgoing buddy, when he's out there, he's just entertaining himself, but at the same time, he knows the flip side of the coin, where he also knows how to move things along smoothly, how to move the interaction to the next level, to that romantic level. So even if some of the things he does technically are a little bit sloppy, this guy's gonna get great results almost every night he goes out. Why? Because he's got that clean, self-contained, fun energy, and furthermore, he's very, very present with the girl, right? He's not up in his head thinking about what to say or do next to entertain them. So I'd even go so far as to say you want to be so self-contained that if they were to leave, you would barely even notice. And this is something that we've referred to in the past as the so-called hot guy blasé, this sort of studied nonchalance, this attitude where you're not crowding them like, hey, come on, do you like it? Do you like it? You're simply kind of putting yourself in that middle space, putting yourself out there, but then giving them room to sort of meet you in the middle space, right? Giving them that room to meet you in the middle. And that, of course, brings us to the next issue, which is becoming naturally screening. Now, even if you think this is something that's holding you back right now, I think that this naturally screening mindset that you developed eventually is going to help you big time. And the reason for that is, if you think about what's the point of having standards and being naturally screening, is that even if you're being super nice to the person, like, say you're making out with them, that'd be pretty nice, right? even if you're doing that, there's just this vibe about you that just doesn't quite give them all the validation, right? And this is so important, especially if you're going for that so-called elite caliber, because with them, it's like even the slightest validation you give them, it's like poof, off to the next. Now, when we bring this up, the argument that some guys would give here is like, well, if she's like that, then why would you even want her? But honestly, between you and me, I think that's pure sour grapes talking. I mean, come on, like they barely know you. The nightclub is a place they go for stimulation, like to dance, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. Not necessarily some place they're going to like meet their future spouse, right? But, overall, I think that being naturally screening, it's like you're sort of this kind of father figure or like a shepherd or something, as opposed to this dude who has like contempt and dissatisfaction towards the people he's forced to interact with. So it's like you're just this kind of fun, cool dude who's nice to them, but at the same time, you're completely unreactive to their frame, right? So anyway, I think that this point here that this guy brings up, it's very, very important, because the idea of being unreactive, the idea of having standards, well, it's one of those things that can wind up the way that so much of game can end up being, which is misunderstood and, just frankly misapplied. So with these videos, I really want to try to hash out all the specifics of it. And that's why I do these videos. Furthermore, in this email, the guy mentioned that he had been doing this for 2 months, right? He'd been doing the standards thing for 2 months straight. So why not, at this point, go back to Dancing Monkey or whatever, right? Ultimately, it's just an expression of a side of your personality. If that's what you're putting out there, then it's going to tend to work for you. And one of the reasons that I got to the level where I'm at is because in the past, when I was coming up, I always did a lot of similar exercises where I just go out and like focus on one specific thing for like a 2-month period of time. And then I'd scrap it and just like reintegrate it into my overall game. And this is something that I always tell my clients at the end of boot camp. I'll tell them, look, I'm going to send you final notes and they're going to be quite extensive. They might be 10 pages of these notes. And when you get it, this is going to be your template of stuff to work on as you go out after the program. And it might be a bit overwhelming to look at all this information, right? But how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. There's a lot of parallel focuses in this stuff, and you have to also understand that you're not going to be able to learn it all at once. And then furthermore, when you're focusing on one area, you might have to go a step back to make that 2 steps forward jump, right? If, for an example, like say you're going out and you're focusing just on, again, having standards, or you're focusing just on dealing with the peer group or physicality or whatever the case may be, and you're trying all this new stuff out and you're not congruent with it yet. So, the set tanks or whatever. And then you're like, damn it, if only I had just behaved like I normally did, I would have actually had a better chance of getting success. But the thing is, once you actually learn it and you actually internalize it, then you reintegrate it back into your overall game. And then it comes back like a tsunami, right? So again, thanks for sending me these questions, by the way. Feel free to shoot me your questions at jeff@realsocialdynamics.com, and you might see them answered on this very channel. So anyway, this has been your boy, Jeffy, your ostensible boy, telling you to get out there and make the myths.